What's up, beautiful, beautiful people? How are you guys doing today? Luffy, and I'm coming back to you guys again with another video. Today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys really quickly about some new information that came out from the National Association of Home Builders. They do this report called the Housing Market Index. They basically take a survey of home builders across the country and get a general feel on where they think that the market currently is in regards to real estate. So it's an indice based off of a 0 to 100 scale. 50 means that we're at about even. 0 is there's a negative sentiment. 100 is purely positive sentiment. And what we saw last month in April actually was the largest recorded drop in history of this indice. So in March, I believe we were in around 70. That was the national sentiment. So pretty strong sentiment about the current status of the housing market. The way that these surveys are conducted is they take three different things into account. One, the current state of the housing market. Two, where they see the housing market going within the next 6 months. And then three, they get a feel on the number of customers that are walking through to actually look and buy homes. So they try to get a supply side by talking to the home builders and getting their perceptions on the present and the next 6 months. And then they try to get some sort of gauge on the demand side by asking those same home builders on what they feel about customer traffic. So like I said, from March to April, we experienced the largest recorded drop in history. And I believe it was from about 70 or 72 or so down all the way to 30. So complete 180 in terms of sentiment from March to April in terms of home builders. And this was also corroborated by housing starts and data that was released in terms of housing starts. But now they've released some May information, and the May information is actually really interesting because it looks like sentiment on a national scale is slightly up. We look like we're at about now, I believe it said 30. I'm just going to double check this for you guys. 37. So we were 30 last month, 37 this month. And that's kind of interesting because a lot of the sentiment was that, or at least in economic terms, when we're talking about the macro economy, was that May would be a lot harder of a month than April was. And one of the reasons I believe that, even though that is true, and we're seeing that play out in the unemployment reports, and also in terms of all the data that's coming out about small businesses and job losses. Even though all of that is true, the one thing to note about this indice is it is forward thinking or forward looking. So remember, there's three things that comprise this indice: the current market situation, where they expect the market to be in the next 6 months, ding, 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 and the customer traffic. So from what they're seeing, customer traffic is kind of picking back up a little bit, and they expect in the next 6 months for things to kind of turn around. Now, this is also very regional information, though. The Northeast is still extremely, extremely pessimistic. There is a natural discrepancy that exists across regions. The South and the West region of the United States, there's just more optimism for those regions as opposed to the Midwest or the Northeast. And in particular, if you look right now, the Northeast is at about a 17, I believe, while the West was in somewhere in the 40s, almost mid 40s in terms of sentiment. So you can see that although as a whole, we here in America are fairly pessimistic, and the home builders are still fairly pessimistic about the housing market and where they see it going within the next 6 months, that information is still very geographically relevant. If you're in the West Coast, for instance, if you're somewhere in the South, the housing market is completely different from the Northeast, from the Boston and New Yorks and Philadelphia and all that. So I just made this video real quick because I wanted to give you guys some more information about where we can kind of expect the housing market to go. Remember that this is just a survey of home builders. So the information is only as good as the data that you input. And that's where the data is coming from. These are home builders, and they're being surveyed. to get their sentiment about where they believe the market is and is going to be. But I still believe that that's relevant information, because once you can get a feel on the national market and the regional markets, you can kind of make better decisions for yourself, and you can get a better feel for how everyone else is feeling. You can decide whether to zig and zag with everybody or kind of do your own thing. I actually take this information as very optimistic and hopeful. I think that the home builders realize that the economic shock that we incurred as a result of the virus was a short-term thing. There are long-term ramifications of it. So that's why we're still under 50. But they do realize also that there are short-term ramifications. There's long-term ramifications, but the short-term ramifications are harder hitting. It's like getting punched in the face. It's gonna hurt for a couple weeks, but it's that moment when you got punched that really hurt. And right now, we kind of got punched, but the next couple months should be a little bit easier. And that's not to say much, because the current situation is really bad. But there is a glimmer of hope and optimism, and at least that's the way that I choose to look at the data and information. So if you guys appreciated the perspective that I give, feel free to subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment down below, tell me what you guys think. I'm actually going to put a link to this report down below so that you guys can look through it and give me your opinions. Do you guys think that this is optimistic? Do you guys notice anything that I didn't notice, perhaps in terms of regional data versus national data? And what do you guys think about these sorts of surveys in and of themselves? Is there valuable or useful information that you can derive from interviewing home builders? Let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. One love as always. I'm out.